Good morning, all my California colleagues. You are here for the 34th meeting of the Local Energy Resources Network, put on by your friends at the California Climate and Energy Collaborative. We're really pleased to have so many of you back. I am Angie Hacker. I'm the Statewide Best Practices Coordinator, joined today by Kelsey Wolfcloud, another member of the SEEK team. She'll introduce herself over chat. As always, we really like if you will introduce yourself over chat. Tell us who you are, where you're from, any way you like to introduce yourself. And we also like to see your smiling faces, but it's not mandatory. And they don't have to smile. So today we have a good meeting for you. We have some folks here from the Department of Energy, the CBG program, and also from our friends at BayREN, who are going to tell you about a program of theirs. So let's dive in. And I have to apologize here first. I have the plague or something. So if I sound rough, um, hopefully you all are not getting the back to school germs like I am, but that's what's going on with me. All right, so today, actually one slide back, Kels. Let's just remind ourselves what we're here to do today. So as always, we are here to help you access opportunities that can help you advance your local energy and climate goals. You're busy, there's a lot going on. You come here, you get briefed, you go back go back to work and hopefully feel like you know a little bit more about what's going on in the ether here in California. So I'm going to do our opportunity roundtable. We have a guest spotlight, like I said, from EECBG, which is coming due. And then we're going to spend most of our time with BayREN on their home energy score program. And then we'll do what we always do, have a little optional breakout time for, extending the conversation if we need to. And you can always bring a topic there, an announcement, a question, 15 minutes bonus breakout. It's optional, but hang around if you'd like after noon. All right, next slide, please. Okay. I don't know what my theme is, what my pattern I'm seeing in the world here, but this is our opportunity roundtable. We always provide this as a hyperlink cheat sheet. We're going to throw the links as we talk about programs in the chat. And this is the sort of snapshot for early October. What's active right now that you might need to know about and what's coming? So we look at funding, other assistance and input opportunities. If we've talked about it before, I don't highlight it again here. So the yellow stuff are things that we haven't yet talked about. So I'm going to focus our attention there. In the past, we've sort of talked about how policy drives investment. Those things end up in the sausage making process for a bit where they turn into programs, and those programs eventually become a solicitation on the street. One thing that's in the policy making process is going to be this California Climate Initiative reauthorization process. So they're reauthorizing the California Climate Initiative, which is funded out of CARB's cap and trade revenue. We're going to reauthorize that, it sounds like in 2025, which is a bit early. And it's just something that we're tracking as SEEK and CivicWell because it's really important. It's the one big $4 billion annual recurring funding source that this state has, and we're lucky to have it. And this re-up might be an opportunity to kind of relook at this. And we'll probably be interacting with you all and trying to get some feedback from you as we track this reauthorization process. That's the one policy update I have. And then the other theme I think I am seeing is just there are still IRA and BIL dollars making their way through to the streets where you all can apply for them, not in as steady as a flow, perhaps, but we still have our state funding opportunities. So we're talking about those today. And the things I am seeing come out, I actually have to say, I'm seeing more that are giving a longer application window, which I think is really nice. So hopefully some of the screaming and crying that I have been doing and others asking for more time for some of this stuff has been helping. Okay, so let's talk about some programs. This first one in blue. Blue means somebody else gets to talk about it. So our friends at EECBG are going to give you a little bit of information, but that's because this is the month when this thing is finally really, really due, so it's a go time. I would love to talk to you about a couple of other programs. The first one here is kind of interesting. From the California Energy Commission, it's called Environmental Sustainability of a Clean Energy Transition, or EnviroSET. It's due in a month, so November 8th. And so a lot of what I'm seeing come out of the California Energy Commission right now is sort of out of their R&D or applied research arm. So this will fund applied research to inform how clean energy technologies can have basically fewer impacts on species, habitats, ecosystems, and ecosystem services. So they're saying projects must fall within some groups. So Group 1, automated mapping of solar energy footprints and modeling of land use suitability for agrovoltaics. Group 2, assessing and minimizing environmental and biological resource impacts of clean energy developments. 3, testing bird-friendly windows for decarbonized buildings. And Group 4, identifying biologically appropriate exterior lighting. So this real interconnection between like what we're doing, how we're impacting the ecosystem when we transition to clean energy. Pretty interesting. This solicitation is open to public and private entities with the exception of local publicly owned electric utilities, and there is no match. Second one here from CEC I wanted to highlight is called, it's actually from the EPIC program. It's Enabling Electric Vehicles as a Distributed Energy Resource. I thought this one was pretty interesting too. You have until November 22nd. There's a total of $12.6 million available here, and it's intended to fund studies and, again, applied R&D as part of EPIC's Transportation Electrification Initiative. And I know a lot of you guys are really starting to focus more and more on transportation electrification. I'm going to read something out from this solicitation because I just thought it was an interesting fact. It says, with over 1 million electric vehicles registered in California today and over 15 million electric vehicles expected on the road by 2035, those are fun facts, EVs can quickly become one of California's largest distributed energy resources as deployment accelerates if their significant battery capacity is leveraged. So this solicitation has 3 project groups that will seek to address 1, vehicle grid integration, 2, the high costs of what's called V2X or bidirectional charging equipment as compared to unidirectional charging, and 3, the lack of so the third group is the lack of access to cost-effective, accurate, and flexible sub-metering solutions. So this is not, if you're somebody who's just trying to get a charging station or trying to get, your constituents to do EVs, this is not necessarily the best one. This would be for more if you're ready to kind of really lead here on some demonstration projects, something a little bit more advanced. So you would be a better candidate for this solicitation. This one is, depending on the project, might be no match or 10% match. And the solicitation, again, is open to all public and private entities with the exception of local publicly owned electric utilities. So locals, you're eligible. Okay. Here's another one I wanted to share, and I mentioned it the last time. This one is from the Department of Energy. So this is energy improvements in rural or remote areas. We gave you the heads up about this one that we thought it was coming in fall, and it just came out a couple of days ago. And so this one actually has a webinar today, I want to say 4 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're interested in learning more, you can just kind of listen in. I really like attending those. Highly recommend. If they're putting on a webinar, go listen. You hear things that are different than how a solicitation might read. The concept paper, okay, this one has a long track. So you almost have a whole year to apply. The full applications are not due until August 28th. There's a concept paper that will be due, but not until February 27th. So you have some time to think into this one. This one has up to $400 million. They're estimating giving 20 to 50 projects. Funding opportunities will include awards from $2 million to $50 million to help communities develop tailored clean energy projects best suited for their unique needs. And so they must meet one of the following. They have to improve overall cost effectiveness of energy generation, transmission, or distribution systems, and or siting and upgrading transmission and distribution lines, reducing greenhouse gas emissions from energy generation in rural or remote areas, or providing or modernizing electric grid facilities, developing microgrids, or increasing energy efficiencies. So this one's got a lot of the right things, stuff in our wheelhouse. But again, this one's a focus on rural and remote areas. I'm talking with state agency folks about this that sort of want to help. So there's probably more to come here, and we have some time to think into this one. There are 4 different topics that you could apply under. An interesting one here for smaller smaller scale, community centered. That one has awards 2 to 10 million with only a 5% match. Some of the other categories have larger match requirements. Okay, those are the main funding sources I wanted to bring to your attention. If you know of others, please help us all out and put them in the chat because it's hard to monitor all these things. You might know of others. Okay, a couple things I wanted to also share with you under other. So one thing under other assistance. Oh, that was in the wrong spot. Let's just pretend that's another input opportunity. So the CEC, we continue to work closely with them. There are ongoing opportunities to provide input on their IRA programs, including the homes rebate and the TREC contractor training. And that was just something I wanted to highlight, that there is sort of this ongoing continuous docket process. If you have something to say there, you can always submit some thoughts. And so many of you are doing residential work or working with your local contractors. It's a good way. If you subscribe to that docket, you can be seeing what everybody else is saying as well and kind of keep in the loop. I recommend it. Okay, other input opportunities. Tomorrow, there will be a meeting with the Tech Clean California program. Hey, Jeffrey, I see you. One sec here. There is going to be a quarterly stakeholder meeting with, it sounds like, updates from the California Energy Commission. And they're going to talk specifically about the HERA rollout. So that's what we had Jeffrey here to talk about recently. Do you want to say a couple of things, Jeffrey?
Yes, I just tomorrow will essentially be our first public information about the HERO rebates. Our website now has a HERO rebates page, so I just put that in the chat and highly recommend you attend. And I would also say, especially on the rural and remote areas, the CEC is very interested in especially bringing more contractors to different rural and remote counties. They have some goals. So highly, if you are from one of those areas, happy to talk and kind of coordinate on potential ways that we can make that happen.
Great. Jeffrey, why don't you put your email address here in the chat again so folks know
I
how to
will
reach
do.
you and totally go to that. I mean, I might go to that meeting. That's an important program. Lots of money going into that. Last thing I wanted to share with you all under input opportunities was, I think I mentioned it last time, but there's more information. The California Public Utilities Commission has a proceeding going on with some informal input and engagement opportunities. California Adaptation and Vulnerability Assessment is the process, and they're going through workshops. So they had one workshop in Sacramento last month. They're going to do another one in Irvine on October 25th, and they reached out asking me if I know of folks that would be really good to have on a panel to talk about how do they engage communities sort of really effectively on this process, which is intended to really look at how communities will be affected when the power is disrupted by climate change and the grid is disrupted and so looking at energy resilience, which I know a lot of you are doing. So I'm gonna save that conversation. If you want to hang around for the bonus breakout, that might be something we talk about a little bit more because I have the ability to kind of propose some folks who might be really good panelists, and I would love to hear your thoughts there. That's it. That's all I wanted to raise for you. Like I said, if there's other stuff, other assistance, input opportunities, funding, please throw it in the chat. Really helps us when we put the hive mind together. Okay, let's go to our next slide, please. Okay, so I want to say thank you to the Department of Energy, who has been very diligent, actually really amazing about this EECBG program, trying so hard to squeeze every last drop out of it. Like I said, this is the month where it's really due, and there are some folks in California who have not filled out a full application. And so they're having this big sweep here throughout the country to try to make sure where they can get enough people to get those formula dollars as they possibly can. So here today we have Audrey Bragg with the Department of Energy. She's a project officer for the EECBG program, Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant. She works with tribes and local governments here in California. And Audrey, thank you. Tell us what we need to know to get squeeze as much juice as we can out of this program.
Of course. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, she said Audrey Bragg. I'm delighted to be here with you to walk through the formula funding opportunity for local governments. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Actually, one more. I'll go ahead and just dive right in. So what is the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program? It's a highly flexible formula grant program, of which 239 local governments in California received direct allocations for grants from the Department of Energy. These funds can be used for just about anything that promotes energy conservation or reduces emissions in your community. And the program was funded under the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. I think the three most important things to remember about the program is first, the funding truly is like highly flexible and formula based. As I mentioned, it's allocated via a population-based formula, so that means it's not competitive. There is no cost share requirement with this funding opportunity, which I think is important. And there are 14 eligible use areas that really do cover a wide range of projects, including building audits, retrofits. You could do strategy planning, and even workforce development. The second most important thing, I think, is there is an alternative option to the traditional grant application process. DOE knows that applying and reporting on federal grants can require a significant administrative burden. So we've created an alternative to the traditional application, and that is vouchers for either equipment rebates or technical assistance. And I'll go into a little more detail on one of their slides. But in the final, most important thing is to remember about the program is the deadline. And for local governments, that is in 3 weeks, October 31st, 2024. I want to strongly reiterate that this is one-time funding. So you must come and claim it by the deadline. Otherwise, we don't know when it will be coming around again. The time before was ARA in 2009. So try not to leave funding on the table. Can you go to the next slide, please? Here's a list of the remaining local governments that are still missing either their full applications or they haven't indicated that they're going to apply. And this leaves a total of about 14 million of formula funding unclaimed in California so far. There is still time to submit. If you see your city up here and you have questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. My last slide today will have the contact info for both me and Melissa and also our vouchers team. And I just want to note the voucher application can take under an hour to complete once you're in the portal. So once we have our resources, we have examples, it shouldn't take too long to actually submit the application. All right, now that we've discussed the three most important things and kind of review the status of California local governments, I can now move into what we can do with the program. If you want to go to the next slide. I mentioned before that this is highly flexible. Oh, I lost all of you. There we go. Highly flexible, and listed on this slide are all the eligible use areas for the EECBG funds. I showed this not to go into detail, but just to give you a sense of the breadth of the projects that you could pursue with the funding. The key takeaway here is that if you have a project in mind that ultimately reduces total energy use and or fossil fuel emissions in your community, and it's not a brand new building, the EECBG program can probably fund it. Next slide. DOE knows that applying for grants can be extremely time consuming, and we've developed that option that I mentioned to streamline and shorten the process through that voucher for equipment rebates or technical assistance. And so what are the difference between the two? For on the traditional grant side, that is provides the most like maximum flexibility. So you can use your funds for administrative costs such as paying staff time or implementing financing programs or offering workforce training. But on the other side, like why would you choose a voucher? You know, vouchers have a much smaller administrative burden, which is great for staff. If you have staff that is capacity or resource restrained, we can also process vouchers more quickly. And this is the route to go if you have, you know, like a really straightforward project in mind. The technical assistance voucher is great because DOE assigns the provider for you. So that means you don't have to go through your procurement process, and they also do the reporting for you. So it really is one of the lightest lift options. Ultimately, the choice is yours. Either way, it's a highly flexible program. And if you're wanting to switch between the two, either go grant to voucher or voucher to grant, the deadline to do that is October 15th. So I highly suggest reaching out if you want to switch. Most of the cities that were all listed on that page are on the voucher side already. But if you're wanting to switch to grant or vice versa, just let us know by the 15th. Next slide. Okay, next up, I want to highlight the resources we have available. I like to think about applying for EECBG into two main steps. The first is figuring out what you want to do with the funds, and the second is actually completing the application. Here are some resources. You know, we have resources for every step. I won't go into detail, but wanted to highlight a couple. First is the program guidance doc. This is a comprehensive list. It has all the eligible use areas and includes examples and also connects technical assistance. And then if you need inspiration, check out our awards page, program blueprints, and we have a new streamlined projects document that's up online, and that highlights project ideas with reduced admin and reporting requirements. So if you're looking for something that doesn't trigger, you know, BABA or DBA, that might be something for you to reference. Next slide. All right, transitioning on to how DOE and others can support you. So we're here to help out at every step of the way. We have a series of references, including example applications. So if you just want to start from scratch or you want to see how other folks have put things together, you can view those online. And we also have a new application guide that's going to be posted in the next day or so. You can join office hours through the month of October. We're offering them twice a week, Wednesdays and Fridays at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. And then the International City and County Management Association, ICMA, is also providing one-on-one application support at no cost. And that is, you know, I think something that if you're just need additional help getting the application in, you can reach out to them as well. All right, next slide. I have about 4 examples of how funding's already being used in California if you're still struggling to figure out what to choose for your project. First up is Livermore, California. They chose the voucher option and the city purchased 2 dual port solar EV chargers for fleet and public use. These portable chargers are off grid with solar and battery storage. And one thing to note is because this type of technology they didn't need ground disturbance and they did not require installation by a third-party contractor. They have reduced reporting requirements for this type of project. Next slide. Next up is Santa Monica, and they are running a low-income e-bike voucher program, which will increase access to zero-emission transportation to disadvantaged communities in Santa Monica. And I think the highlight here is the point-of-sale aspect of the vouchers, which eliminates the needs for residents to have any upfront costs. Next slide. So Palmdale, California is launching an initiative to distribute plug-in EV chargers to eligible households, as well as create a roadmap to convert their municipal fleet and install microgrid at their city maintenance yard. I think this is a good example of planning our strategy use for funds for like long-term goals. Also that you can use it for 2 different types of projects. You don't have to spend all the funding on one. Next slide. Last, I have a San Diego County project highlight, which I think is a good example of how flexible the funding can be. They are also standing up 2 distinct programs with their funds. They are doing an equitable solar installation program as well as an electric cooktop loaner program, which will allow residents to test out the clean induction cooktop technology before, you know, maybe making the larger purchases. And Palmdale and San Diego's projects demonstrate how you can deploy projects or funds into multiple, you know, avenues that, you know, address energy burdens, household health, and climate mitigation all at once. All right, a couple more slides. Next slide, please. Okay. If you're already awarded, because I did see some of the folks that I'm already working with, or if you're still working on your application, we do recommend signing up for our Blueprint cohorts. These are essentially monthly 90-minute meetings led by experts in the field to coach, problem solve, and share information about specific EECBG programs. And you can sign up. There's 13 different Blueprint topic areas from, you can read them on there, EVs to workforce development. It's completely optional, but we do encourage you to sign up and take advantage of that additional support. And next slide. Okay, I know it's moving very fast, but I just want to highlight once again, we are here to help. Please join our office hours. They're twice a week right now. Reach out to ICMA, or you can connect with the program team directly. If you're on the voucher side, you can email that DL-vouchers or EECBG vouchers at hq.doe.gov. That will send you directly to the voucher team. There's a series of folks that work on that. or if you're on the traditional grant side, you can reach out to Melissa and I. We both manage the California portfolio. So, and one more time, local government deadline is at the end of the month, October 31st. And we're here to support. So please do reach out. And if you're not sure where you should be or who the contact is, yeah, feel free to reach out. Thanks,
Thank you so
Angie.
much, Audrey. Really appreciate you being here, encouraging us here in California. I imagine can you drop anything else here in the chat that you'd like us to be able to get to? Even that list would be helpful, I think, for folks to see. I distributed that to all the regional energy networks, thinking they might be able to sort of help scoop up and help the folks that don't, they're not always the folks that come to these meetings. So we won't, some of these are the harder to reach folk that we want to make sure take advantage of all of this. And by the way, folks, this is something we want to see as much traction here as possible because we hope to see more EECBG program happening in future years. And that's something I think that we'll try to do our own advocacy around. Just one-time funding for these formula allocations is hard to manage. We'd like to see it recur, which I know DOE would love. Okay, so thanks again, Audrey. We're going to move into our featured conversation for today. If you guys if you have questions for Audrey, throw them in the chat. She's going to hang around and she might be around, I think, too, for the bonus breakout if you want to ask more questions. Okay, so let me please introduce our featured speaker for the day. She is Emily Alvarez. She's the program manager with Stop Waste, where she leads the Bay Area Regional Energy Networks of BayREN's Green Labeling program and provides climate action support to cities in Alameda County. So the Green Labeling program promotes the US DOE's home energy score and aims to increase energy transparency in the single-family home marketplace within 9 Bay Area counties. And recently, CPUC approved BayREN's home energy score activities to expand statewide. And so that's why she is here today to talk to you about that program. And we're really excited for BayREN and excited to hear what you have to say, Emily. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Everyone can hear me okay? Yes. All right. And are you going to go through my slides or should I pull them up?
Yeah, we've got it.
Perfect. So welcome everyone. I'm going to give an overview today of the Home Energy Score California program and where that stands and a little bit of background of how we got here. Next slide. So as Angie mentioned, and I think some of you may be familiar with because we did do a listening session with this group a year ago, maybe more. Time is not real. So we were approved by the California Public Utilities Commission to expand our current home energy score activities statewide under the 2024 to 2031 business plans. So basically, without reading all of that text, this is the ordering paragraph that did state that, which basically approved an additional $9.9 million of funding between 2024 and 2027 to fund that home energy score program. It did require that we submit a Tier 2 advice letter with details of that statewide plan. It's very exciting. We submitted the advice letter on October 3rd, so we can check that one off the list and move on to the next process. And so this is really exciting because it will actually be the first non-utility led CPUC ratepayer funded statewide program in California. So I bring that up just to note that I think it shows the kind of growing importance of local governments running these kinds of programs, complementary to the ones run by the IOUs, because we know that we have kind of different goals and purposes. Next slide. So a little bit of background for those who may not be familiar, since I guess I'm going to assume maybe a few of you have heard of it. I don't have a ton of background, so a great thing if you have questions or clarifications later on. But what is Home Energy Score? So it is a home asset rating developed by the U.S. Department of Energy and its national labs. It is often compared to a miles per gallon rating for your home. And so I bring this up because it is not, an energy model per se. There is an energy model behind it, but it's really not necessarily trying to exactly predict energy consumption. It's an asset rating, which means it's really looking at the permanently installed features of the home, such as the insulation, the windows, hot water heating, space heating and cooling, but also looks at plenty of things like the volume of airspace in the home, the color and type of roofing material, because it's really trying to understand solar heat gain and things like that. But what it doesn't really look at a lot are kind of plug loads or user behavior. So thinking about this in the sense of if we want to better understand our housing stock and what that can do in order to be improved, or you want to compare one house to another house, having that kind of somewhat agnostic of user behavior label is really helpful, because we know you can have a very efficient house with very inefficient people living in it, and vice versa. Or, the energy consumption of a home will be very different if you have one person in the home versus 8 people in the home. So it is kind of is trying to look at this sort of occupant neutral-ish aspects of the home. And so similar, like a miles per gallon rating, you may not get that exact miles per gallon rating, but it's still a very helpful yardstick to be able to understand and compare. Next slide. So a little bit about how the Home Energy Score program works, since again, it is a DOE program that we administer. So it is run through what are called Home Energy Score partners. Stop Waste and Bayren are that entity for the Bay Area program, and we will be for the statewide program also. The partner is responsible for enrolling and mentoring these home energy score assessors that go into the home to conduct scores. And the DOE also has a 5% quality assurance requirement. So 5% of all the scores that are done have to be rescored by that partner staff to make sure that no matter who is going into the home energy score that is coming out is always the same. And so the assessors who go in and do the assessments must hold a relevant credential that is a list set by the U.S. Department of Energy. So they do have to have some sort of kind of building background. It can't necessarily just be someone who's never really looked at energy or at a home before. So some of those credentials include BPI, certain certifications, being a certified home inspector, HERS rater, et cetera. They have to pass an online exam, and then they have to go through at least one mentoring session with our staff, as well as sign our kind of participation agreements. So once that's all done, the assessor goes into the home. So this is not a virtual audit, and they collect somewhere between 40 and 50 different data points. They put that into this US DOE software that is free to use, and they generate a home energy score and accompanying report. Next slide. So you can click through. Sorry, I have some, animations. So this is really just showing kind of the basic features of the report. I think there's one more. Okay. Sorry about that. So this is an example of what the homeowner would receive. We do have a customized report compared to what kind of comes out of the Home Energy Score tool itself from DOE, and that's actually a great feature of Home Energy Score, is that it can be very customizable. So it gives basic home information. We also model 3 different scores. One is the current score of the home. One would be if they did shell improvements only or building envelope improvements only. And then also if the home went all electric. Then we also estimate energy costs, energy consumption for, again, the current home and those 2 improvement pathways. This is really because we want to highlight electrification, but also help people understand what those, maybe lesser expensive building envelope improvements could consist of. And then estimate carbon emissions for those 3 different scenarios. So there are times where maybe because of efficiency, that shell improvement, depending on their existing heating and cooling equipment, and the full electrification can be kind of similar scores, but that carbon footprint, and we note there that California's goal is carbon neutrality, really kind of shows that all electric homes are really the only way we're going to reach our carbon neutrality goals. Next slide. This is the second page of the report, so I'm sorry, I think there's a few things again. I think I'll end with one. Yes, one more. Perfect. So this is the second page of the report. We do have some next steps if someone wanted to take action. There's QR codes to rebate and tax credit information. Then there's the kind of current conditions and the recommended improvements for that building shell pathway and the full home electrification. Then there's a third page that has optional assessor notes. So that can be often used if an assessor may want to talk about the phasing of a certain kind of improvement, or if they find health or safety issues in the house. So for me, when I got my first home energy score, for example, they noted that my tanked gas water heater was not properly vented and therefore could be a kind of carbon monoxide hazard. I have a heat pump water heater now, so no longer a problem, but it was actually really handy for them to point that out because I didn't know beforehand. So they'll kind of use those for what they see in the house. There's also some notes on how the calculations were made, how the recommendations were kind of come to. So some sort of fine print on that third page as well. So I don't have a copy of it because it's not as exciting, I guess. Next slide. So we mentioned the green labeling program through BayREN. So a little bit of kind of how, again, we got to the home energy score and statewide home energy score program. So the goal of BayREN's green labeling program, which is one of BayREN's 10 programs, is to increase the kind of energy literacy and transparency of information in single family homes. We have a voluntary regional program that launched in 2018. So we provide up to a $250 rebate for home energy scores to be done throughout the 9-county Bay Area. But we've been doing scores in the Bay Area since closer to 2014 or so. Berkeley passed their building emissions savings ordinance in 2015, which requires a home energy score at the time of listing of a single family home for sale. And so Stop Waste started doing some pilots with DOE about the home energy score to really test it, see if it would be a good fit, because Berkeley was looking for what that label would be in this policy. Ultimately, they did decide that the home energy score was the best option. And so we've been doing home energy scores for closer to a decade. And then the BayREN program launched based, modeled off of what we've been doing in Berkeley as its own program in 2018. So our program trains home energy score assessors, provides rebates, and promotes the home energy score. We also deliver a suite of green real estate training, since again, some of the goals of this program revolve around real estate transactions. Next slide. But what I want to point out here, and why the statewide program is called Home Energy Score California and not the green labeling program, is because the home energy score activities will scale statewide, but the delivery of green real estate trainings will not be included in that program. And that's because there are several PAs who are using ratepayer funding already to do these real estate trainings. We're happy to align with those to kind of work with folks who have those happening, but we're not saying BayREN should run those for the entire state because they're happening in 3C REN territory and SCE territory, et cetera. So just really want to highlight that that's not part of the statewide program. Next slide. So this is looking at our scoring activity. As mentioned, we were doing scores earlier before the full program launched in 2018. That's why you really only see these green Berkeley scores. Previously, in 2017, we kind of started doing a few scores under BayREN single family program, which is why you see a little bit of those blue scores. And it's really taken off since 2021. The pandemic obviously was tough because we couldn't send people into homes for a while. But then once we were able to get people back in homes, it's really our number of scores has pretty drastically increased. We are working with about 50 individual assessors or so in the Bay Area across about 20 different companies. And we're on track to do about 5,000 to 6,000 scores again this year in 2024. Next slide. So to the statewide program, and a pretty high level overview of what we will be doing. So the basics are, we'll be providing home energy scores to any single family household within the kind of major IOU territories that pay into those ratepayer funds. We'll be expanding that partner role where we'll be enrolling home energy score assessors statewide. We'll be coordinating with any existing workforce education and training programs that PAs may have to see if there's opportunities there to work with those programs to enroll new assessors. We have plenty of relationships with statewide industry groups for HERS raters, for home inspectors, et cetera, that we can tap into. We'll be providing marketing and outreach for home energy score throughout the state to try and get activity, demand for scores going. And this will be a voluntary program, but we will have support in place if anyone were to be interested in looking at a home energy score policy. Next slide. So as mentioned, this is a voluntary program. unless a jurisdiction has or decides they would like to pursue a mandate of some sort. Rebates will be available for all scores. Right now, they're not available in the city of Berkeley because they do have a mandatory policy. We will kind of be taking the same approach that if another mandatory policy were to pop up, we would probably still do rebates and phase them out over time, which is what happened with Berkeley, because again, we don't really need to incentivize things that are required, but it's really helpful to have those rebates in the beginning to get the kind of program going, the workforce going, to get people used to something. We have not settled on an exact rebate amount yet. The current rebate for BayREN, like I said, is $250. It's likely to be similar, but that is kind of one of the things we're trying to consider. Because, the BayREN rebate actually was higher when it first launched. So, but then the higher the rebate amount, the fewer scores we can do. So we're still kind of looking at what that kind of sweet spot is for the rebate amount. And then the rebate budget will be distributed throughout the IOU territories. So while we have more scoring happening in the Bay Area, we are not going to have it so that just the Bay Area winds up getting more scores, and other territories don't have as much access, since we do know, obviously, we have a head start here with demand and workforce. So as I mentioned, a lot of these program details still need to be finalized. When we will soon be starting our implementation plan, which is kind of the next regulatory step to take, which will hopefully provide us access again, or now we've filed the advice letter, we'll have hopefully access soon to that $9.9 million in funding and be able to then kind of dive more into these activities. Pointing out also that according to the CPUC portfolio segmentation, Home Energy Score California is a market support program. So we are not claiming energy savings. And really, again, the goal is to kind of support the availability of this information, helping homeowners understand it, so that they can guide decision-making in purchasing a home, renting a home, making upgrades on their own home, and also building the energy workforce. Next slide. We also are planning to set aside budget each year for certain in-program pilots. So we would be partnering with entities that are interested in going maybe a step further with Home Energy Score. So it could be an individual jurisdiction, another REN, a CCA, or some other PA. Some possible pilots that we outlined in the advice letter could be further customizing that Home Energy Score report. Right now we'll be coming up with a Home Energy Score California report, but there may be opportunities to figure out what a Home Energy Score California 3C REN report might look like. And if there's kind of a little bit of different branding or something like that, a different set of recommendations, those are possibilities. There's also, we'll have, again, that basic marketing, but we could also, this is, again, some things we do in BayREN now, can customize those marketing materials, help folks conduct additional outreach. We will be doing recruitment events, but again, like if somebody is like, I really want to promote this more, we could partner with someone to do a specific targeted workforce recruitment in their area. And again, not exploring a labeling policy. Next slide. All right, so a little bit of proposed timeline. Very exciting. Again, our advice letter is filed. So there's 20 days for potential protest, and then the PUC is technically supposed to act on it, I believe, within 30 days, but they do have the ability to postpone that ruling for 120 days. So it could be a few months, unfortunately, until we find out if the advice letter is approved, but we remain optimistic. We will then have to contract with the IOUs, which is no easy feat, but, we're hoping we've got some great precedents for that. We do have to draft an implementation plan and program manual. So when we have the funding to do that, that will include lots of these, again, kind of final program design details, logic model, metrics, the exact rebate amount, et cetera. Because we also know that there are some challenges to expanding from the Bay Area statewide. We're planning on developing a geographic targeting and outreach plan to take a look at some of those strategies. We hope to begin workforce recruitment and outreach in late 2025, so that ideally, come January 1st, 2026, we're ready to start doing scores. But, if some of these other things get delayed, these might get pushed back. But I really hope we'll be able to launch by Q1 of 2026. So we definitely still have quite a few, check marks to get through before we're ready to start scoring. And part of this is, again, figuring out who's really interested in this, what your role may be. It's, again, optional. Our staff will certainly be implementing the program statewide. But from what we've seen in the Bay Area territory, it is really great to have these local government partners. Again, as I mentioned at the beginning, the fact that we'll be the first REN to do this, I think it is also potentially really exciting to figure out if there's more of like a role for local governments in these kind of statewide partnerships and programs as well. So I think that's all I have. If you go to my next slide, I think it's just a summary and my contact information. So if you have questions, you can feel free to reach out to me. We've also been using this homescoreca.org website for updates. So part of filing the advice letter is we had to do a public webinar. So it was a longer version of this PowerPoint. So the slides and the recording of that webinar up on the website, as well as an FAQ and some other documents. And so that's kind of, we don't have a listserv at the moment going. So that's kind of the best place to stay to look for updates or just reaching out to me. Okay.
Thank you, Emily. This is so exciting. Maybe it's worth reflecting for a moment that it's just really cool that we have local governments collaborating for so long through entities like the Regional Energy Network, bringing on nonprofits that are really good at what they do in those regions and designing these programs that work in their community and that are getting scaled up. But not only that, they're mighty enough now, they can work their way through the PUC regulatory process and get access to dollars to scale up. I mean, honestly, this wasn't like this 15 years ago. So it's worth just checking in to be like, we're doing good. Things are happening out here. And I'm really excited for BayREN and local governments in general who really could use this model to do more statewide programming ourselves. So with that, I want to turn it over to some folks that were dropping questions in the chat. And actually, Tessa, you dropped something here. She said she would love to learn more about workforce placement opportunities for BPI and HERS raters in the SoCal region. Maybe you covered that already. Tessa, do you have more to say here?
Simply that our Green Path Careers program is training what we call opportunity youth and adults to be HERS raters, and they're getting BPI trained as well. And so we need jobs, like they're getting trained. And so if we could connect, I know it sounds like you have still hoops to jump through, but we would love to connect and see if there may be opportunities for the Southern California region.
Yeah, those are exactly the types of opportunities we want to identify, because there is a little bit more of like while you have to have one of those minimum certifications, there is a bit of an easier entry pathway here, even than to becoming a HERS rater. And so they're really, we have a lot of HERS raters in the program in the Bay Area, and we'd love to be able to, again, kind of identify those great workforce programs where we can either work with some of the companies we know and hopefully get people hired, or at least just getting people out doing scores. So we can definitely connect.
Connect, yeah, awesome.
Thanks.
It's making me think we have, these regional convenings we're trying to pull off around the state, and you all might be a good participant of those if you're looking to really understand where there's opportunities around the state and really kind of dive into where those might exist. I'd love to help you with that. Okay. LP McCloy at the City of Palm Springs says, we don't have a formal program in place, but there are almost no certified raters or auditors in Coachella Valley. It's certainly a bump in the road for the program we'd like to do. Happy to be part of a conversation that might connect trained workforce to work opportunities. So is there anything more to say there, LP?
No, not really. I mean, I would love to say that I have like a budget in place that I can hire like 7 people to come do this right now. I feel like there might be like one other piece to this puzzle that I haven't thought of yet, but it's good to know that there is both a program framework that would guide the work, and the SoCal REN program, I believe Tessie from SoCal REN, I apologize for that is training the people to do the work. It's definitely something that when people come to us and they want to take advantage of our rebates and do some of this work for planning, they're saying like, well, where do I start? And I'm like, well, you can call somebody from San Diego, which is 2.5 hours away. It's like, so that's something we've identified as a workforce opportunity we'd like to grow here in the region.
Yeah, I'll just point out quickly, this is why we thought this was a great program to expand statewide, because it's a federal label. And I mean, I get calls I had someone call me the other day trying to figure out how to find our, use our website through BayREN to find a home energy score assessor. And it's like, okay, you filter by your county, and they're like, my county's not on there. And then they were from Orange County, and that's why. And so it does feel like we've set up a really good infrastructure here. Our assessors, some of our assessors work outside, do other jobs outside of BayREN territory, yet they can only offer this in BayREN territory. So, we want to be able to grow that workforce throughout the state.
Okay, here's a question from Carrie from City of Elk Grove. When you mentioned that this will be an IOU territory, does the IOU have to provide electric service? We have PG&E for gas, but they do not provide electric service, which is provided by SMUD. Will they be eligible?
Yeah, good question. Okay, the short answer is that yes, as long as they're a gas customer, it should be fine. That is how the program works right now, and how most of the REN programs work, or ratepayer funded programs, is that you just have to be a utility customer from one of the IOUs, so gas or electric. It's fine for there'd be a CCA. The slightly more nuanced answer is we are trying to figure out how homes that maybe are all electric in a territory like SMUD may be affected, because then that individual home is not a PG&E kind of ratepayer customer. So we're just trying to, it wouldn't matter for a CCA, sorry, that would only really count for a municipal utility. So again, some little details that need to be ironed out, but as long as there is something provided by one of the IOUs, we should qualify just fine.
And then Cooper is asking, is it expected that the HES rebate cover the full cost of home energy score service, or are residents expected to pay a portion of the cost?
It depends. So the rebates were not designed, in the beginning, they were designed to cover the full cost. And then we've scaled back as time has gone on, again, to partially accommodate more scores. And obviously the fact that it's not covering the full amount doesn't seem to really be stifling the amount of scores we have, since we've grown in the amount of scores quite a bit. But the assessors are allowed to charge whatever they feel is appropriate for the home energy score. We don't set a price. The home location, how far away it is, and the size of the home are the two kind of largest factors that go into how much the score costs. We also, sometimes the home energy score is offered as an additional service to like a home inspection or a HERS rating. So those are often cheaper, obviously, because they're already in the home for some reason, than a standalone score. So there's a lot of things that affect cost. And so it's really just been to the idea that we'd come up with one price that would cover the whole rebate is not really realistic. So we're just offering a flat rebate amount, which we know based on our kind of data covers typically between 50 to 100% of the score, depending on a lot of the factors I just mentioned.
Okay, and then the last question that I see here that's sort of a double comes from Tom. It appears HERS score is a relative score related to how far along a path toward an energy efficient structure with energy efficient appliances a home has landed. The next steps seem very useful for making either decarb progress or energy, gas and electric progress. Is this the right way to view it? And would there be a way to include power efficient design next steps toward electrifying without needing to upsize the electric panel?
I will try and answer that question, and then Tom, you can clarify if I didn't. So the home energy score is a comparison of home to the national average home. So a 5 is an average home, a 10 would be most efficient, 1 least efficient. And so it is, it's not looking at how my home is here now and it can sort of get to here. It's sort of like how efficient is my home compared to other homes. So it also provides that kind of, which we know can be really helpful for folks to have that kind of baseline. So for example, my first home energy score was a 5, which was average. After we did our home electrification and energy efficiency project, we went up to a 10. So now we would consider relatively like more efficient. That doesn't mean that we have done everything. You know, there are certain things we did not do in our home, like wall insulation. So it doesn't mean there's nowhere for us to improve, but it means that now we are considered one of the more efficient homes in the country. So it does help one understand kind of where they currently fall and where they could get to. But it doesn't necessarily mean there's a lot of like nuance in there, which is why I'm saying like it's hard to kind of say like, for example, sorry, not every, this is where it's a complex question that you're asking. Not every home can actually even get to a 10. And that's something we have to deal with, but it's partially because one of the things that factors into the home energy score is home size. So again, this isn't like, it's really a label that is comparing how many resources your home consumes compared to other homes. And so a 10,000 square foot home, is actually kind of designed to never get to a 10 because it will always be more of a resource hog than like a 700 square foot home. So it's not an electrification score, it's an energy efficiency score. And that's where we've kind of made some of these tweaks to put a more prominent view on electrification, knowing that that's really important in California. So hopefully that answered the first part. I'll try and answer your second part and then see if there's anything I can clarify. There are
You know what,
options.
Emily, I might need to close us out, but what I think I need to do, because we're about to end our
Yeah,
meeting, have our bonus breakout, and I feel like we should continue that conversation into overtime. A couple of these last questions that have come up, it's good that we have it. Just want to make sure we send people off where we need to. And maybe, you know, is there one thing that you want folks to do right now, Emily? Is there anything they can do other than just be patient and wait, or contact you if they have ideas?
I mean, I definitely welcome plenty of ideas. Again, we're kind of drafting the implementation plan now. So if you have something that you think is really great and important, this is definitely a time we can collect that kind of feedback.
Okay, Emily, you are the expert, and we're really happy that it's you and Bayran that are going to be running this program. You might want to drop your email address here in the chat as well for folks that want to contact you. So thank you, Bayran and Stop Waste, for that, and we're excited to see that roll out. That's going to do it for our official 1 hour Learn call. We are going to stick around for another 15 minutes or so if you would like to join us for our bonus breakout. Our next meeting is going to be November 12th, and we'll just be back out there, our monthly meeting. As always, we hope you share this invitation with others and keep coming back. And if you have any other ideas for speakers, you can always contact us. We're always looking for ideas and opportunities that we can make sure you guys get advance notice about, take advantage of. Okay, thank you all for being here today. We're gonna stop recording and then go into our more informal discussion.